Down to Omar Al Shaheen. For him, futility continues.
Rack number 1, Mr. Oi to break.
So Naoyuki Oi has played one match already today, beating Lucius Yap 5-2, ending a run of 3 defeats in a row prior to that. And a bit of everything there. He's potted 4 balls off the break and he's scratched. Eventful start.
Start the clock, please.
On numerous occasions, we've seen absolutely terrific break-offs where so many balls have gone in. What this means is a very quick conclusion to the rack, surely.
Well, half the work is already done for him, and the remaining work isn't that difficult. 30 years of age, Alex Kazakus, reigning World Masters champion, and at number 12 in the new world ranking list.
When he won the Wisconsin Open on Saturday, flew directly here from the state they call America's Dairyland. He was actually the master of brinkmanship. It's a funny old format over there where they play best of 2 sets, race to 4, and if it is 1 set each, then they have a shootout. And he was the shootout king, including in the final against Peter Alawadi. In sport, small things can make a massive difference. He came away from there with a $25,000 first prize.
Well, he's flown in from America's Dairyland. And has milked this glorious opportunity for all it was worth. Alex Kazakis very swiftly leads Naoyuki Oi 1-0. Speaking of very swift, we're absolutely racing through the action on the other table. Omar Al Shaheen already on the hill, 4-1 up against Max Lechner. Now, if Lechner loses that, that's going to be played 9, lost 9. And he's going to be losing all hope, really, of turning it round to get through. There you can see he's lost every match so far. Really, if he was to lose that, he'd need to win all or nearly all of his remaining matches to get through. But I would think of more immediate concern to him. He might be thinking of the humiliation of losing all 15.
Yeah, I think let's assume that Omar Al Shaheen does win that. And bear in mind, he was 4-1 up on Albin Aushin earlier and lost 5-4. But if he does win that match, I think Lechner would then need to win at least 5 of his last 6 matches, possibly all 6. And considering where he is in terms of confidence, that's been battered out of him. I think that's pie in the sky. I would never have imagined we would see Max Lechner at the foot of the table in these circumstances. If it is 9 defeats out of 9, that's extraordinary.
I know he spent yesterday afternoon at the cinema with Albin Aushin, and it's been an absolute horror movie for him so far in this tournament. Alex Kazakis then, 1-0 up and with the break.
Mr. Kazakis is leading 1-0. Mr. Kazakis to break.
Well, much like rack 1, the break working well. Several balls disappearing, but the cue ball doesn't. Stays on the table with a clear shot on the 1.
I was talking there about him being at number 12 in the new world ranking list, Phil. Now, that initial list has been put together by a committee. By the end of the year, we'll have an actual points-based list, and it's going to be fascinating to see where everyone finishes up in that. And then, of course, that will change as the tournaments go on, basically in perpetuity. But there have been various attempts at world ranking systems before, and I think they struggled for credibility. Kazakis, at one point in one form of the world rankings, was actually number 1. Very good player, but I don't think anyone ever really felt he was the best player in the world. But now, with the new structure we have, and the grading of tournaments as well, so that the very biggest events will count for a good deal more than the other ones, it really is going to mean so much. And not just in terms of its credibility as a ranking system, but also the implications of it, because entry into elite events like this will be largely determined by where you are in the rankings.
All of which is true. We also had the full announcement of the World Pool Masters today. It's going to be taking place again in Gibraltar at the Europa Sports Park from May 5 to 8. And the significance for Kazakis is, of course, that he defends the title. If you're watching us for the first time today and you've heard a voice in the background saying 10 seconds, that's the 10-second warning. Basically, it's a 30-second shot clock with one 30-second extension per player per rack. So the 10-second warning enables players to realise where they are in terms of the time scale. We normally have the beeps, of course, in a one-table situation, but with two tables in close proximity to each other, the beeps would be off-putting.
Couldn't ask for a better start than this. Very efficient from Alex Kazakis, and he leads 2-0 against Naoyuki in the early stages here. I mentioned the World Masters. A lot of the field has been announced, and it ties in with what I was saying. So many of the places in these elite events are going to be determined by the world rankings, and when you look at the players who are automatically in that, we don't have the wildcards announced yet. It is such a strong field. So 5th to 8th of May at Europa Sports Park in Gibraltar. Great that the tournament is going back there after all the difficulties of the last couple of years, and you can start getting your tickets from 10 o'clock on Friday. Matchroompool.com is the place to go for those. It's really established itself as a mainstay of the calendar. Great to have all these new events, but wonderful to have the more established ones as well. Long before it was in Gibraltar, that tournament had quite a history, going back to, I believe it was 1993 was the first ever staging. I think it may have been called the European Masters at that time. I think for a while it was being played in a shopping centre, so it really has come a long way and is a huge prestige event now.
Yeah, in 2002, well before snooker, darts and other things occurred here in Milton Keynes on a regular basis, the World Masters was played in this town. Ralph Suke captured the title. He's won the World Masters on 6 occasions, has Ralph.
Rack number 3.
Unsurprisingly, the record amount.
20 years on from that staging, here we are again in Milton Keynes. It's been a venue for so many tournaments in the pool world over the last year or so, starting with the Championship League here around this time last year. It's now the Premier League, and Naoyuki is 2-0 down in his match against Alex Kazakus. He's not going to scratch again, is he? Wow. 2 breaks, 2 scratches.
Ouch for Hoy. Ooh. When you consider it was a gift in rack 1, then rack 2, Kazakis broken ran. Now he's here again. Ouch indeed.
Kelly Fisher did the same thing yesterday. She scratched from the break in both racks 1 and 3 against Shane Van Bonin, although remarkably she actually ended up winning both racks. Went on to lead 4-1, but was ultimately beaten 5-4. Well, that's all Oy has done so far. He's broken off twice. He's potted a total of 6 balls from those breaks. And it looks as though he could very well be 3-0 down in a moment.
So easy on this reactive cloth to get hold of the cue ball too much, and that's what Kazakis has done there. Okay, the 5 is still potable, but he drew the wide back, well, at least a foot more than he wanted to, maybe even more than that.
Extension, please.
the pot was no bargain. To avoid the middle pocket, also good. And now after that kiss on the 8, this should be plain sailing. Now, not wishing to impose negative thoughts, but I've seen quite a few of these particular kind of shots missed. Near jaw seems to be quite common.
10 seconds.
No problem there. In without touching the sides.
Well, it's basically been perfection from Kazakus so far. Ran out from his own break in rack 2. Has picked up off Oi's scratched breaks in racks 1 and 3 to run out from those positions as well. Not only is it going to be 3-0, but Kazakus will be breaking in rack 4. So all to do for Naoyuki Oi when we come back.
In pool, any foul shot is so expensive. So when you scratch on the break, not once but twice, it really does hurt. That is the scenario for Naoyuki Oi. You can see the abject frustration. What a shame for him. That's why he finds himself in such deep trouble, trailing Alexander Kazakis 3-0. And of course, as Michael said before the break, Kazakis gets to break off in racks 4, 6 and 8.
Yeah, what's even more frustrating for Oi is that the break was such a strength for him earlier today in the win over Lucius Yap. Big difference between the two players.
Well, this is worked a treat. The cue ball stopped in mid-table. No balls kicked it. Open 1, open 2. 4-0 looming. Score update for you, by the way, on the other table. Even though he's encountered all kinds of adversity, Max Lechner still fighting. He was 4-1 down to Omar Al Shaheen. It's now 4-3.
Yeah, and Al Shaheen has just played a relatively poor shot, giving him a look at the one. Seen a couple of matches already won from 4-1 down this week.
Extension. Extension, please.
The speed enabled that ball to fall in. Any harder, it might have wobbled and stayed on the table. Thought for a moment that Kazakis might leave really hampered queuing over the 9. He has left hampered queuing to a certain degree, but it could have been worse than that. Even so, this 6 is very missable.
10 seconds.
Well done.
Yeah, he's just oozing confidence, isn't he? And why not? I mean, this has basically been the perfect performance. Saying earlier he was #1 in an earlier form of the world rankings, but no one ever really, I think, would honestly have said he was the best player in the world. Nobody could really do any more than he's done so far in this match. Absolutely clinical. Doing everything right. And now leading Naoyuki 4-0. Prospect of only the second whitewash of the tournament. Very much on the cards here. Meanwhile, Max Lechner still fighting the good fight against Omar Al Shaheen, and all credit to him. It would be so easy to let his head drop after the run he's had over the first 2.5 days. Well, Shaheen is in real need of a win as well. If he was to lose this, that would be only 2 wins from his 8 matches.
And as if to rub salt into the gaping Lechner wound. That was a safety shot. The 2-ball just kept running and running and running. And he's got position on the 5. What a cruel game.
Yeah, and that one's been played quite nicely as well. So just when Lechner might have felt he was in with a fighting chance, it now looks as though this is all over and he's going to lose 5-3. And, you know, the really unfortunate thing for him is it's not like he's getting beaten out of sight in these matches. He's won, well, after this, 28 racks across the 9 matches, so most of them have been pretty close. Just been a shot here, bit of luck there. That's made so much of a difference. But Lechner's nightmare goes on. Omar Al Shaheen, though, gets a much-needed win. He beats the Austrian by 5 racks to 3. Next up on that table will be David Al-Kaidi against Mieszko Fortunski, 2 players from clearly opposite regions of the current table.
Rack number 5, our current score is 4-0 in favor of Mr.
So can Naoyuki do anything to give himself a glimmer of hope here? He's scratched off both his previous breaks.
And this time, what does he do? Doesn't scratch, but the 9-ball blocks the 1. And you can hear the distinctive sound of the disconsolate pool player, the butt of the cue going into the carpet. What have I done to deserve this? That's what he's thinking to himself.
Push shot called.
10 seconds.
Mr. Kazakis, your option.
Well, if he's pushed out and left the pot on, that would be extraordinary. I don't think he has. Surely Kazakis can't squeeze past the 9 and find the potting angle. Oh, he put back in.
I think we saw quite a bit of movement on that shot again. It's become something of a characteristic for him. Oi, only got one more match today. That'll be against Kelly Fisher. And he isn't involved at all in the later session today.
10 seconds.
Extension, please.
Well, isn't that remarkable? Oi has suffered so much from scratches in this match, and just when it looked as though one was going to go in his favour, the cue ball has somehow stayed on the table, even after kicking off that 2 with quite a bit of pace still on it. Indeed, in the end, it may have been the pace that perhaps kept it out.
On the precipice, how did that avoid gravity? And what's more, I think he's got, well, theoretically, position on the 2.
Yeah, he did well there, knowing he was under time pressure. Kept his cool nicely, and this could be end of match. And really, it's hard to think what Alex Kazakis could possibly have done any better in this match. He's fed off his opponent's mistakes. He's been very effective in his own breaking racks. Good jump shot on the 1. Okay, a bit of fortune, as we said, to keep the cue ball on the table and have a shot at the 2. But he played that very well. And since then, he's progressed further and is now just 4 balls away from completing only the 2nd whitewash of the tournament.
Cushion first there to go around onto the 6. Yes, Kazakis has been impressive here. He's definitely had the favourable luck, or to be more precise, Naoyuki has had some terrible luck. But the fact remains, Kazakis literally has not missed a ball. Misjudgment there, mind you.
But it is going to be the end now, and Kazakis is going to move on to 5 wins from 8. And there seems little doubt now that he's going to feature in the 2nd phase. Alex Kazakis then gets his 5th win on the board. Only the 2nd whitewash of the tournament.